Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor. And today I'm doing another book review in my Read Every Book by Stephen King project. And today is Night Shift, Stephen King's first short story collection, which came out in 1970 something or other. When did this come out? 1978? No, 76? I have no idea. It came out in 1970 sometime. But I'm too sleepy to look for what the actual date is because I had to work many extra hours, and it's very late at night and I'm sleepy and I have to get up in 5 hours. So it was 1970 something. I'll find out and I'll put it down there somewhere. But anyway, it was Stephen King's first short story collection, and it's a good one. I really like this book. I was pretty impressed. I've enjoyed his novels, his first 3 novels that he wrote, and this is his first short story collection that he put out, and it's really good. The stories are excellent for the most part. In fact, I think there's only one that I didn't really care for, but everything else was pretty good. What do we got? We got Jerusalem's Lot in this, which takes place in the past, close to that creepy Salem's Lot. And Jerusalem's Lot, that's a pretty good story. That's one of the best in the book. We've got Graveyard Shift, about giant rats that attack people on a graveyard shift. It's just as good as it sounds. Okay, it does have a main character that does things that don't make a lot of sense unless he's got a death wish, but, otherwise, it's a good story. Night Surf, moody little end-of-the-world story that takes place in the same universe as The Stand. I Am the Doorway. That was kind of creepy. That was a kind of a creepy little story. The Mangler was ridiculous. It's about a possessed laundry folder or something, some sort of big laundry thing that irons and folds outfits and mangles people because it's possessed by a demon. It's silly, but in a good way. Dark and silly. The Boogeyman, another dark and silly story. Gray Matter, another dark and silly story. Battleground, excellent story. Trucks, much better than the film that they made out of that story. What was that movie called? Oh, it's too late. I can't remember. I've been awake too long. But Trucks, that's a good story. About, killer vehicles, killer trucks with no drivers. They're just, sentient all of a sudden and possessed maybe. Who knows? Who knows why these trucks are just driving around with no drivers, slaughtering people. But it's a good story, though. Sometimes They Come Back. That's an excellent story. That's an excellent one. Great ending in that story, too. Strawberry Spring is kind of a serial killer type of story, and it's the only one I don't really care for in this whole collection. Strawberry Spring kind of has this odd style to it. He's like, he tries to do a non-Stephen King, more literary, more fancy kind of style deliberately, and it just doesn't work for me for whatever reason. I don't know. It's just okay, if even that. The Ledge, though, the following story is really good. That's one of the stories in this book. One of the stories in this book that reminds me of Richard Matheson's story. There's a lot of Richard Matheson DNA in this short story collection. A lot of these stories feel like they could have been written by Richard Matheson. And The Ledge is one of them. The Lawnmower Man, not so much. The Lawnmower Man is just a crazy story about a lawnmower man who I can't even go into what the story's about. But it's absurd. It's an absurd story. That's what The Lawnmower Man is. And no, it has nothing to do with that ridiculous movie that came out. when was it? Was it the 80s or in the 90s when that movie came out? It was a long time ago, and it sucked. The story's a lot better and bears no relation to that film. Quitters Incorporated. Excellent story. That's another one of those stories that feels like a Richard Matheson story to me. Probably that feels the most Richard Matheson out of all the stories in this book. Excellent, Quitters Incorporated. I like that one a lot. I Know What You Need. That's Stephen King's romantic comedy that he put in here. Yeah. Children of the Corn. Now, I didn't expect to like Children of the Corn because Juan over at Plagued by Visions was unimpressed when he was doing his evil children. When he was doing his evil children month. He read a bunch of stuff about evil children, and he read Children of the Corn, and he's like, I thought it was pretty creepy. It is true that the man and the woman, the man and wife, whose marriage is on the rocks, those characters were a little tough to take. They were a little bit annoying, but they kind of had to be for the story. The story itself was pretty creepy. You know, those kids are creepy in this story. And it's all about this marriage that's falling apart. And because it is the marriage that kills these two. Because if these two could have gotten along, you know, they would have survived this story. But they couldn't. When the chips are down, they couldn't get along when they needed to. And they died. Oh, spoiler alert. I just spoiled Children of the Corn for you. Sorry. Everybody's seen that movie anyway, right? Except for me. I saw it once a long time ago, but I remember nothing about that movie except that there were creepy kids in it and that it wasn't all that great. I liked the story, though. The story was pretty creepy. I liked it more than Juan did. You'll like it, too, even though you know what happens in it. Let's see. The Last Rung on the Ladder. That was a great story about regret. Not really a horror story. More just a story straight up about regret. And that hit me. It's a little heavy-handed. Yeah, it's a little heavy-handed, but that's okay. It works. It works. It's a good story. The Man Who Loved Flowers. One for the Road. One for the Road was great. Another Salem's Lot story. Takes place after the events of the novel Salem's Lot. Still creepy over there, even after the place was abandoned and burned down. Still pretty creepy. Weird stuff going on. Might possibly have something to do with vampires. But One for the Road. Really, really good story. And then the volume concludes with The Woman in the Room, which is another story kind of about regret, about grief, about impending loss. It's quite a serious story. So it shouldn't have something that makes you laugh in the very first paragraph. But I'm going to read you this and just tell me that this isn't funny, because this made me laugh. And it shouldn't have. You shouldn't have anything in the stories, in this a story like this that makes you laugh. But just listen to this sentence. There is no dignity in putting things up your ass. That's a line in the first paragraph. He goes on about suppositories in this first paragraph. See here, and this was the first red flag that rang in my head because it reminded me of something that Stephen King does much later, which, well, not just much later, but from here on out, I think. If something just pops into his head, he just puts it down in his manuscript, in his story or novel. He'll just, if it's in his head, he'll just put it down. And he won't go back and say, you know what? Maybe that doesn't work. Maybe I should take that out because, does it really? No, I don't think that works. He won't do that. And there's no editor alive, probably at this point, who's going to tell Stephen King to take something out of his book because everything he writes is gold. So it's a funny little sentence. it shouldn't be in that story because nothing in that story should make you laugh or amuse you going into this really, really sad story. That's okay. It's still an excellent story, The Woman in the Room. It is an excellent story. I just found that sentence oddly placed. But overall, this is a heck of a good short story collection. All the short stories are focused. They're all to the point. They're all very entertaining. Some of them are funny. Some of them are creepy. Some of them are creepy and funny. Excellent, excellent short story collection, Night Shift. I don't remember much about his other short story collections. I remember Skeleton Crew being pretty good as well. But excuse my shaking dog, but I don't remember it that well. So we'll have to find out when I get to it. Now, of course, I've got little Stephen King with me today. So Stephen King, excellent batch of stories today. I think aside from that whole bit where you talked about, you know, somebody putting things up somebody's ass in the beginning of a story that's supposed to be sad. Other than that, excellent story, Stephen King. You're doing really well so far in your books. The 70s have been a good decade for you, little guy. And so the next Stephen King that I'm going to be reading is going to be The Stand. It's a giant book. So I'm going to be reading The Stand next. I'll be doing that next month. It's probably going to take up a big chunk of the month. So yeah, The Stand. But this month, it was this one, Night Shift. Fantastic book. So I will see you here next time at Stately Vaughan Manor. Probably won't get a Sherlock Saturday up, unfortunately, because I'm exhausted. I'm going to sleep about 4 hours. And when I get home tomorrow, I probably will not want to film anything. So I will catch you in a couple days, my friends. I will see you then.